Welcome to the AP Effect, the podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Kanye.
Hey, it's Kaylin.
Hey y'all, it's Destiny.
What's up, y'all? It's Shalia. Welcome to the 8th episode of the AP Effect. Today's episode will be about institutional racism in the educational system. Institutional racism doesn't just affect adults, but children in K-12 schools as well. Anecdotes from families, research studies, and discrimination laws all reveal that children of color face bias in schools. So prior to researching, did you guys know that these facts were as serious as they are?
Not really. Before I did my research, not really. I know that we do experience racism. Well, people do experience racism. Racism in the education system, and in some schools, some people, especially people of color, don't get the same equal opportunities as the other people.
I knew about them, but I didn't know about it in the full extension after doing the research and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I knew the issue was present, but I didn't know it was that serious.
Right? Yeah.
Because I didn't know what it was on a general scale, as a country wide thing, a national thing. So I didn't know the numbers to back it up, but I knew it was an issue.
Do you also think that the reason why we didn't know because where we grew up, we didn't grow up in an education, in a school where we didn't really see it as much? Do you think that's why?
Kanye, you should share your story about the schools in Georgia and stuff.
Oh yeah, I personally seen it growing up because I used to move between the north and the south kind of, and where I'm from, Georgia, the curriculum always seemed to be behind than rather if I was to be in North Carolina or Maryland or some sort. And I always found that odd because in Georgia schools, when I attended them, I excelled because the curriculum was terrible, really and truly. And in the places that I was at, it was the country and it was small population. So I did see how they treated minorities and people of color, especially in public school systems, with a little to no dignity. I got recognized for academic things at that school, but y'all, I'm not an academic person at all. It's the work that was there was in your face type of thing. And it was common sense type of thing. And they weren't really teaching them anything. And so the people that actually took the time to care about school, they got recognized for it. But the curriculum wasn't even nothing that was actually, it wasn't hard. And then when I moved to North Carolina, it's the higher I got up the East Coast was when the curriculum started to get, harder basically.
Now that I'm sitting back and thinking about it, I kind of have a similar story. So I went to schools in the inner city school kind of, and it was, I'm pretty sure it was very much underfunded, but I, like Kanai said, I excelled in a lot of, the basic subjects and the electives type thing, but one thing for sure is that I was terrible at reading. I was a lot of reading levels behind. And when I moved out here to the county in middle school, I had to do a reading remediation class just so I could catch up.
Yeah,
wow.
I can agree, Kaylin, because it was I didn't have to catch up, but I literally could see the difficulty change as I switched to a different school. It was so crazy to me. And I'm dang, I'm at this school, I'm excelling and I'm, doing all these things, but at this school, I'm regular, schmegular, so it was weird.
After I moved, that's when I stopped getting honor roll, So it's just
yeah, honestly, yeah.
It's and the I'm not going to say the passion in the teachers, but that kind of changed too, because I'm not gonna lie. I did have a couple, like I had a good amount of good teachers, but I also had a good amount of bad teachers. Like I remember this one teacher. I don't know if I want to say her name because she still scares me to this day. Like she would literally get in kids' faces and yell at them. And not to mention, she had a spitting problem when she spoke. And think about it. First of all, you're yelling in a kid's face and you got a spitting problem. And she was always pregnant, so she was never there.
Oh, okay.
And then that's another thing too, like the teachers change as well, because but like the teachers and stuff like that, like what Kay was just saying, teachers don't care. Like when the teachers in the South, like you had those very hand-picked few that actually cared about the curriculum and the kids learning it. But most of the teachers that I experienced barely even taught proper grammar, barely had proper grammar, proper English. Like it was just like, and not saying that you have to have those things, but it's like they weren't even qualified to be teachers themselves.
Right.
Like it was like and I realized I was in like middle school around the time I was like 8th grade. So when I was at that school, I just realized I had to do the work and get out, because it's just like the teachers weren't even teaching. I would go to school class every day, y'all. The only class where a teacher actually sat there and taught us was math. That was the only class where I was actually getting some type of curriculum and some type of discipline in my work. Yeah. And the rest of the classes, history, science, English, all of those teachers, they just showed up to their job every day. Like, and I was one of those people that respected teachers no matter if they did their job or not, because they're my elders and how I was raised. But it was like, I'm like, dang, what is y'all here for? Like, it's like they were just babysitting us.
I had a teacher when I was a junior. She was a math teacher, and she would literally, like, first of all, she didn't take control of the class. Like, from day one, she never like put in place like rules or regulations, nothing. Like it was just, what's the word? Yeah, chaos. That's the word. So she like literally the people that would sit there and be quiet, she would like have them gather around her desk, and she would just teach those people, and everybody else would just get a packet. And she was like, even if y'all fail, because like they gotta meet like a certain grade like level like overall so that they can qualify to be a teacher next year. But if they've been a teacher for so long, they don't need to, like, it matters, but it doesn't really matter. So
the tenure thing.
Yeah, tenure. So like she was like, yeah, I have tenure, so if all y'all fail, it doesn't affect me. Like she told us that.
Wow.
And it's just crazy, because it's like, dang, you're not even intentional about our development, our growth. And
right.
It really shows in like certain teachers that they just don't want to be there.
They don't.
And the thing is, the schools hire these teachers. So when you see somebody in an interview, I mean, of course, when we all know when you go to an interview, you putting up a front, you showing something that you want the person to see or whatever and stuff like that. But just like, y'all, like, remember how like the principals used to come in the classroom?
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Like this. It's like, why does that stop? Like, and even then, y'all, I remember the teachers used to put on the front in elementary school, like, like that. We was usually learning stuff. Like, it's crazy. Like, people would go into teaching professions and like get comfortable, and they make it so hard for the curriculum to be anything that's actually worth learning. So I think teachers, like, they get in the mindset of, oh, well, I have to do this by the numbers, or I have to go by the book, because anytime a teacher tries to challenge the curriculum and do something different, they get like blackballed. And from what I've seen, it's like, it's like, why are you trying to do that? Like, stick to what is right here. Teach them this, and that's it.
Can I try back to what Kaylin had said, mentioned earlier about transferring schools from like different counties? I did go to a Baltimore City school, and from all the way until 8th grade year, like mid 8th grade year. So I had transferred to Arundel Middle School, and then I was taking French the entire time. So I think I had transferred like 2 months in the 8th grade year. So I thought I could like transfer all my classes and stuff like that. So I was telling my counselor, like, hey, yeah. Whoever, like the advisor, I was like, yeah, I was taking French. Like, can I continue it? She was like, oh, we don't offer it, or saying I had to stick with Spanish. I was like, if I was already taking French the entire time since 6th grade, why can't I finish it? But she said no. And I didn't understand that. Why did I have to switch out? If y'all was offering French, why couldn't I just finish it out? I don't know why I had to transfer to Spanish.
And then like the credits be like, and then even with that, like they probably transfer you to Spanish desk because Spanish is something that nobody takes Spanish class serious as an elective. Like nobody.
But usually it is like you don't never hear people say like, yeah, they taking like French classes, always Spanish.
That's true.
That's always Spanish. Like it's nothing wrong with it. But like if I'm already doing it already, why couldn't I continue it?
The story. Okay, wait, you were in French and you wanted to be transferred to.
Yeah,
I mean, you were in French and you wanted to be transferred to Spanish.
Because I was already doing it already. Like even though
she wanted to be put in French again so she could finish it out. But
but she put her, and that's what I was saying. When it comes to Spanish as an elective, that's what I'm saying. Everybody ends up in Spanish because even though it's something that we should be actually learning, it's hard to develop a language. It's hard to develop and learn a language after a certain age. Right. So then it's just like, I feel like personally from hearing your story, Des, they wanted to put you in French. I mean, they wanted to put you in Spanish because it was easy because Spanish class was easy.
But if I was already taking it since sixth grade, that's what I'm talking about. I was already taking it since sixth grade.
That's the part that I'm trying to get at though, is that I'm coming at something deeper than what I'm actually like surfacing saying. What I'm trying to say is basically like they was trying to put you, to me, from what I hear, you were already taking French, you were already doing French classes, and then you transfer your school to a predominantly white area, right? Predominantly white area, and you tell them, hey, I would like to continue to do French. I would like to continue to study French. They say, nah, you can't do that, but you can take the Spanish class though. You get what I'm trying to say?
I got you.
It's you get what I'm trying to say? Yeah, like it's like they be doing stuff intentionally and we don't even know it half the time.
But that makes sense though, because like Spanish is a language that a lot of people speak. Yeah. So it's like, it's not, if you put, I speak Spanish on my resume, like it's impressive that you're bilingual, but it's not that impressive because it's Spanish. But if you were to put like, I speak French or I speak
or Japanese
Mandarin or something like that.
Like it would stand out.
It would stand out, but I feel like, well, now, like in today's world now, like Spanish is becoming like the second language. Like it's like good. It is good for you to learn Spanish because a lot of people do. There's a lot of Spanish speaking people in America.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, elementary school. They used to have a ESL teacher like travel to the rooms and like teach us like the colors and stuff like that. And I feel like when it comes to languages and within schools, I feel like that's something that we should start at kindergarten, pre-K. If you want us to learn these languages, you have to teach us young because that's when our retention rate is the highest.
I agree.
And then not to mention that when I have studied abroad, like I met a lot of people like from the UK, they were from Germany, they were from a lot of European people were there. And when I was talking to them, like the one guy, for instance, he was my host brother. He was living with the family that I was living with. His name was Paul, but his name was really Paul, but he was German, so his name was Paul, if you know what I mean. Like his accent made his name Paul. So yeah, but he said, I don't really like the English pronunciation of my name, so can you just call me Paul? I said, okay, sure.
You know, and a lot of people, go ahead, I don't mean cut you off.
But he spoke Spanish fluently. He had to speak German because he lives in Germany. Right. And then he spoke English fluently. And I don't know how many languages he knew, but the study abroad rate here is like 19% compared to like European countries where 80% of college students go study abroad. Because we are taught that like America is the best country. We don't need to travel. Everything we have here, everything we have is already here. You don't need to go anywhere. And
it's kind of like the Lorax. Oh my gosh, that just made me. Oh my gosh, this was such a freaking because you know how in the Lorax, basically it was the same thing. He was trying to teach us like, hey, you guys need to be saving the earth. I don't know why you have like plastic light bulbs. You have plastic trees. You have plastic grass. Your air is now being distributed through bottles, and it's just like. That when you just said that, it made me think of the Lorax because a lot of the stuff that's happening is happening right in front of our faces, but because we were conditioned to believe one thing, it's like nobody is questioning it, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's crazy how 80% of people from other countries travel abroad, but only 19% from 19% of Americans will take that opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
And I think most of it is like the fear of not knowing, because like when I went to Costa Rica, I was off the grid. Like there was no addresses, there was no street signs. When I left, like it was the only people that knew how to get around were the locals, because they used landmarks, but that was it. Like my GPS, it was just like that little blue bubble on Apple Maps that tells you where you are, but there was no like signs, roads,
Oh, right.
so it was like you're really off the grid, and it is scary, but it's a learning opportunity, you know?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I wanted to bounce back to something that was said earlier about like teachers putting on a show and stuff like that. I do have an unpopular opinion. So I believe that cameras should be put in classrooms simply for the safety of the students, because we did have a situation at Arundel, you know, and two, to see if they're actually learning, if their teachers are doing their jobs. Like, I understand when I was in school, I was just like, oh no, there shouldn't be cameras in classrooms. But now that I'm older and I have like a better perspective on things, they definitely need to put cameras in classrooms, because it's just like, what's so private that they can't be looking in there all day, you know?
Sure.
What's so private about it? What are you
And
doing that they can't see?
Even if the camera's not on, you don't have to tell them that it's not on.
Exactly.
You know? Let me see.
That's true, but like I agree with what you're saying, but it's like it's so sad that now we're really thinking about this, like putting cameras in classroom, like people should be doing their job.
People should be doing their jobs. It's sad that we need to consider it, but at the same time, it needs to be done.
But who about to be? I feel like the reason why they probably didn't think about it, because like who about to be watching all these cameras? Like if it's cameras in everybody's classroom, who's about to be sitting there and watching it?
But it's not even that. It's not, and I understand like with that you would have to hire more security and stuff like that. You would have to hire like somebody to be in the camera room, whatever. But it's just like, you don't have to watch it 24/7. You can always go back. Like if you hear of a situation or if somebody reports something, you can always go back to that date and watch it, just because you have the footage, you know, and you have the proof that it happened.
Then they also said, like in an article that I was reading from thoughtco.com, they were saying that in schools, like preschools, little Black kids are more they're more likely to be like abused and neglected in the classroom. And that reminded me of a story that my mom told me when I was younger. She was telling me that when my oldest brother, when he was in preschool, that I guess like something had happened and they called her and said, yeah, we lost Michael. They lost him. They didn't know where he was. And come to find out, like he was like in the bathroom or something, but like he was in the bathroom like crying in a ball because like they were just, I don't know what it was, but she ended up like pulling him out the school and didn't take him back there ever again, because he was just getting like, he just was being mistreated while he was there. And and it's like, how do you imagine going to a school and you go to the front desk and you're there to pick up your child and they say, oh, we don't know where we lost
him. Oh wow. First of all, like, and it'd be stuff like that, because like, especially with the way that like society is going now, you know, people are having kids way younger. And so like you have those parents that don't even care. They don't even care about their kids' education, because when they was in school, they didn't care. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like now, with on top of people having kids younger and freaking younger, and then you have these teachers that don't want to do their jobs. It's like, who are going to teach these babies? You know, who's gonna let these babies know the ins and out of the stuff that they need to be known? Like,
and you know what? Something similar kind of happened to me. Not as serious, but something similar did happen to me. So I went to, I don't remember if it was a daycare or a preschool, but it was in my mom's work building. And she came to pick me up, and they were like, you didn't already come get her? And my mom was like, no, where's my child? Nobody knows where I am. But they see me getting ready to walk out this door with this lady and this other little boy. She was taking me to the bathroom. She was taking me to the bathroom, but it's just a matter of communication. Nobody knew where I was going. Nobody knew where I was. Like,
yeah.
Hold on, what lady was taking you to the bathroom? Oh
Wait,
no!
what?
My mom, look, all my mom said was she saw me walking out this door with this lady and this other little boy, and she ran so fast to go get me, and then she was like, "Yeah, they wanted me to get her fired, but I didn't want to do that. She was your favorite teacher."
Oh wow.
Yeah. I don't know, like, but when I was working in a preschool, we knew everybody's parents. So why would
you? First of all, the parents at the preschool that I worked at, the parents made sure they got to know you. They literally would introduce. It was this whole big thing of, hey, we have a new teacher, like stuff. But this was also a Montessori school, and Montessori learning is basically allowing kids to feel their way out in a lot of things. So when it comes to like playtime and stuff like that, you give them more options. When it comes to a lot of the things, you actually give the kids options to choose from instead of just telling them, hey, do this. So I think that's why that school's environment was better, because I appreciated that they introduced the teachers to the parents or whatever, because you really do have to know those things. Like, you really do have to know who's watching your child every day. You have to be involved, because people be crazy. Just like I said in these interviews, people will put on a front and interview and then, be something totally different. So and then I'm thinking about, like, even with my future kids, even if I decide to have kids one day, like, I just think about how involved of a parent that I know that I'm going to have to be, because they're not teaching us what we're really supposed to be knowing, in my opinion. And even academically, like, when it comes to like what a child wants to do with their career and in their life, you know how people say, like, oh, when you're a child, you don't really know what you want, like, you're new here, so you're just, you see. And so if you ask a child what they want to be, and they say butterfly, for example, right, and you be like, oh, you don't know what you really want, but then it's like we're ruining our kids. We're ruining the direction of imagination for our kids, because in my opinion, when it comes to schooling and stuff like that, I really feel like kids should be able to have classes that cater to what they want to do in this life. And even if they change their mind, they can change their mind. But I feel like classes should be catered to something that to what a kid is actually interested into doing. Like, yeah, we have to have the basic math, and yeah, we have to have, like, the basic reading and grammar classes and stuff like that. But even with that, it's still all America based, because if we was to travel to a different country, it would be a totally different grammar, totally different letters, totally
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I feel like we should be able to design curriculums around, like, if a kid wanted to be an astronaut, okay, you put that kid in STEM-based classes, or you put that kid in certain classes. Or if a kid wanted to be, I don't know, because I feel like the stuff that they're teaching us is just so, like, unnecessary. And
was that butterfly thing directed towards me?
Yes, because Kayla, if you really wanted to be a butterfly,
let me tell the little story. So when I was in pre-K, maybe it was kindergarten, I'm not really sure, but my teacher asked the class, oh, what do you guys want to be when you're older? Everybody was saying, oh, I want to be a dentist, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut, da da da. What did I say when she got to me? Oh, I want to be a butterfly.
Because you were already connected.
She's literally like, okay, but really, what do you want to do? I said I want to be a butterfly, didn't I?
I'm telling you, like, it's like a lot, because there's people out here doing, like, it's so many careers. It's people sitting on game systems every day. They get paid big bucks to play these game systems for a certain amount of time a day. we could do anything that we want to do, but then you get in the school system and it's like you have to pick a career. You have to know what you're going to school for. If you want to do this, you gotta go for this. And it's like it's not until college where we can actually pick and choose our classes.
Really,
Is that
honestly.
and then
But
the crazy part
I
is
hate the pressure that is put on people that they need to know what they want to do, because my senior year, I had no idea. I went into college undecided, but I was leaning, like I always say, I was leaning towards psychology. And then I kind of felt forced to do education. And I'm gonna go through with it because it's not it's something that I would want to do. And if I do it, I'm gonna put my all into it no matter what, because these kids are depending on me to give them their education, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like I wish I didn't fall under the pressure and
of
just
having
go
to
into
pick.
something, you know? Because now that I'm thinking about it, like I love true crime stuff and stuff like that, and I would love to work with it, but at the same time, I would have to look at very gruesome pictures and I faint at the sight of blood. But you know, it's still something that interests me and I would love to work with.
Yeah.
But I let the pressure get to me and I just decided to do education.
Who says that you can't do both though? Like people love saying that once you get a degree, you got to stick to that one thing
but
your whole life.
And that's literally what I was about to say, because like we just, when it comes to college and stuff like that and higher education, that's when we finally able to choose the classes that we need to attain to what we're doing. But then that's also when you have to pay for education, you know? So it's just like, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. And then I was thinking, like, even with the performing arts schools and something like that, like those schools, you have to pay big bucks just to be a part of. And when it comes to public school and education, it's like they just give you enough so that you can go to they give you enough so that you know how to be a working citizen in this world, but they don't really teach you anything so that you can excel and actually be something to look up to, you know what I'm saying? In my opinion, like I feel like everything is just very generic, very standard, very here's what it is, here's what it's not, and go. And I don't feel like that's fair, because even with me in college, like I don't feel like I was pressured to go to college. I did want to go to college and I did want to be in school. I think the only thing about it was once I got there, I was a nursing major. And once I got there and I seen, that I was going to have to take a certain amount of math classes. And of course, you need to know math to be a nurse. You need to know how much the dosage is. You need to know how many, you need to know those things to be a nurse. And even at school, I realized, wait a minute, like, it's like, why put my money and effort into this when I know I'm not no good at math? Yeah, I can go get a tutor. But if this is something that I don't really want to do, like, why even do it? And so then I end up getting out of school or whatever. And people fail to realize that school is going to be there to take your money for our entire lifetime. Anybody can get up and go get their degree anytime that they wanted to. It really doesn't matter, like, when you have the degree, when you go and get the degree. Like, I was in classes as a freshman communications. I was in classes with people that were 35 and 40 and stuff like that. And so it really, and now, like, if I was to go back to school, I would go back to school for social, what's the word? Not psychology, sociology. I would be a sociology major because I took a sociology class while I was at Bowie, and that professor really opened my mind to a lot of things, and she made me really interested into wanting to know more. So now, if I was to go back to school, I would go back to school for sociology. But I feel like we should have that choice from the jump. Like, I feel like we should be able to have that choice of, if you want to take these particular classes, you take those classes in high school, and some schools are like that. But those are the schools that you have to pay for. Those are the schools that are charging you an arm and a leg just for your child to go there.
Yeah. And a lot of us don't know what we want to do yet because we haven't been exposed to that one thing.
A lot. Yeah, we haven't been exposed to nothing.
Especially, like, people of color, because we haven't necessarily like had the environment to be exposed to those things. So like, for instance, we could be really good at lacrosse, but we would never know because lacrosse isn't offered in our schools. Or like, we could be like, my boyfriend, he's from Chicago, and he was like, what's the big deal about lacrosse in Maryland? Like, don't nobody play lacrosse where I'm from. I'm like, yeah, they take it very seriously here. So
yeah.
And I was telling him that, but back to what you were saying about the about college. So I know that Bowie State, Morgan State, I think UMES and Coppin State, I think they all filed a lawsuit against the state of Maryland because, you know, they're all state colleges, but they were arguing that they weren't getting the same amount of funding as PWIs, which they're not. But you can like definitely, I don't think that I've seen the funding gap until I went to college because I go to a HBCU now, but I didn't see the funding gap until I went to college because I went to a predominantly white elementary, middle school, high school. So when I got to college and I seen that excuse me. When I got to college and I seen that, you know, University of Maryland, like even from like the buildings, they have a whole city dedicated just to the university. And even with like Towson, like you think of the city of Towson, you think of Towson University. But when you think of Bowie, like it's so much more in Bowie than just Bowie State. And you can just see like the difference. Like we don't have these big dumb frat houses. We don't have that. We have plots. We have like, it's, I don't know. It's just different. Like when it comes to how many buildings we have, how many restaurants and campus resources, it's just limited. Like even extremely limited. Like even with like the study abroad program, like a lot of people aren't interested in it. So we never had one. So like me being one of the few students that were interested in it, I kind of had to like forge my own path to get there, if that makes sense. Because there was no study abroad office, there was no study abroad advisor, nothing. So like we had to kind of make it work through like other organizations and then try and go through Bowie and do it. But now they're getting better. I will give them their props. They're getting better. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah, and it's probably took y'all to even do that, to be honest, because I don't know, Bowie's resources are very limited. Like Bowie is a great school, don't get me wrong. But like when it boils down to it, resources are very limited because HBCUs don't receive the funding that they should. And it's the same thing all over again. It's like you have to have the funding to get it's the same thing all over again. Literally. That's
right. It's crazy to argue that. Like it's crazy to say that HBCUs get the same funding as PWIs because you could clearly go on our campus and
see that they don't.
Atmosphere. You can see like it's all different.
It boils all the way down to what the scenery is, how they do certain things. It boils down to, you know, the classrooms and how the classrooms are kept. It boils down. It's all boiled down to the same thing, that when it comes to minorities and education, they don't want us to have the mindset of knowing more or growing. So therefore, they belittle us with no funding, not letting us know what we actually are capable of. And then also on top of that, telling us a white man's history that was never true in the beginning or from the jump. So then it's like, even with HBCUs, we have HBCUs that have been defunded and had to close down because they weren't receiving the correct funding from the government.
So with that being said, like, what are some contributing factors to why the education system like has these like defects and stuff, especially like when it comes to educating African Americans? Like, what do you think that, like, not the downfall, but what do you think is the cause of this? Like, is it poverty, parent employment, parent education, teacher quality? Is it all of them? If so, like,
what's the cause of like
what are some factors that's put in place to why the education system is the way it is right now? All the factors that you listed, I agree, especially with like the funding and like teacher quality.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say, honestly, I think it's all of them. Yeah, because they all play into each other, to be honest.
Yeah,
because I Yeah, I think it's all of them because for the students living in poverty, they are experiencing a bigger struggle than the children who are not. So like they're undergoing more stress, more anxiety than the average child, you know? I was watching this video and it explained that this little boy, he went to school every day and he never brought a pencil. And he got in trouble for not bringing a pencil. And in an essay or something that he had to write, he explained that bringing a pencil to school was the least of his worries because he was living in poverty. You know? So that's one factor. Parent employment. They can't if they're not working, their biggest concern is making sure they have somewhere to live or taking care of their child. So getting them into the best school probably isn't their biggest concern, you know.
Yeah.
Just as long as they can go to school and get some type of
Right.
education, that they'll take it, you know.
Can I add on to that, please?
Yeah.
So that reminded me of this article that I read while I was in school, and it's called The Early Catastrophe, and it was based on like the war on poverty in the 1960s, and it was talking about a study that they did, and they were trying to teach like children that lived in poverty, they were trying to teach them like more vocabulary words, but they found that the study was temporary because they weren't getting that same like exposure to those words at home. So like when they stopped doing the like when they stopped teaching them, like the words weren't being used, so they kind of like forgot about them. And they found that when your parent is unemployed or your parent's not a professional, that the child knows less words because they're not around that environment where like they're using a bunch of big vocabulary words. So it's like when you really think about it, kids are being, you know, sent to school already at different levels, and you're putting everybody in one classroom, and it's like there's different starting points. People are starting in different areas, so it's really about like trying to include everybody and trying to. It's crazy because you're trying to teach one thing and trying to get it across to everybody, but not everybody's getting it because everybody's different. You know?
Yep. And everybody is seeing life through different perspectives too. That's another thing like that I feel like a lot of people fail to realize is like life is all happening at the same time, but everybody's seeing it through a different lens. And like when it comes down to education and catering to people that are less fortunate and maybe don't have the two-parent household or don't have the necessities that they're supposed to have, it's kind of like where in the education system where you take the initiative and be like, okay, because we know these people don't have these resources, maybe the kid won't understand this, or maybe they won't grasp that as quickly as a kid that has the two-parent household, you know, the parents that are able to sit there and teach their child before they even get to school, because that also plays a part too. I feel like parents play a huge role when it comes to educating their children, because the school system is not doing anything. The school system is just watching your child for a certain amount of hours a day and telling them the basics. I feel like when it comes down to really educating your kids and teaching them, it falls down to the parents, in my opinion.
But a lot of the parents don't know what's going on in the schools.
That's why it's important. That's why teachers need to understand that their job is very important. It's needed. Like you need to know how to do your job because like things like I understand what you're saying, with like parents needing to know how to like educate the children, but if they don't have the education themselves,
right?
And not only that, but it's just not of high importance, because if it wasn't high importance to you while you were in school, it's less likely that they're gonna enforce that on their child. And just some stats to like back up everything that we're saying. Parent education: 13% of Black children ages 6 to 18 have a mother with less than a high school education, compared to 5% of white children. 17% of Black children have a mother with at least a bachelor's degree, compared with 36% of white children. And for parent employment, 38% of Black children live in a household where neither parent has full-time, year-round employment, compared to 19% of white children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow.
And you gotta think about it. Like, college wasn't really pushed on Black youth back in the day, you know? It wasn't pushed, it wasn't enforced, and it was looked at as, oh, you trying to be white, going to college, get an education. But it's just like,
Right. Or like when
Similar.
she was mentioning like the crabs in the barrel, like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to better myself. So when I'm like, sharing my experiences or sharing what I'm doing, it's like, oh, you trying to leave us or forget you, you're not one of us anymore,
Right.
Mhm.
And I hate that. When you try to better yourself, it's looked down upon.
One thing that I actually learned yesterday was that in 1740, one of the like slave laws was South Carolina law was whipping or execution if slaves grew their own food, learned to read, and assembled in groups. And it's crazy because it's not that far off now. Like, don't get me wrong, like we're not going to get executed for doing those things, but they are discouraged. Like, when have you, and I feel like these are all the things that we need to do in order to like lead to like Black liberation, if that makes sense. Like, in order to, like, we have to encourage how to read, how to write, education as a whole. We have to learn how to do these things. Like these are essential life skills, but because of this environment that we grew up in, we don't necessarily know exactly how to do it. Like, who do you know that grows their own food?
I feel like that's something that should be taught, because knowing how to grow food is an essential thing in life, but they're teaching us the Pythagorean Theorem, which is so dumb. If everybody knew how to grow their own produce and create their own food, guess what? Everybody would be healthier. Everybody would have more work ethic. Everybody would have more community aspects. But no, they're teaching us the Pythagorean Theorem. What the heck is the Pythagorean theorem? Why do I need to know that a squared and b squared equals c squared? Why? And on top of that, why are letters even involved in mathematical sequence? Like, what is that? Who created that? Whoever created that,
tech ed requirement?
They were bored. Whoever, right? Tech ed. Like, who? Why is wood shop class a requirement? Why do I have to know how to build something? Like, it's stuff like that.
I knew you.
It's like they trying to give.
I knew you from the South. Well, now that you said wood shop.
Yeah. What did they call it? I forgot. What was the class called? Which is dumb. No, but let me tell you why. They shouldn't have called it tech ed, because there was nothing technical about that class. Okay, it was wood shop. That's what it was. We were in there playing. We was in there with Mr. Hershkowitz building them things. It was nothing. I mean, I guess that is a technology, of course, but like, it's wood shop.
I failed that man class twice.
I kissed his butt, so
I can take that class 3 times.
I got those stats from ets.org if you guys want to check out more of them. So with all that being said, like, how can we begin to like create change?
Learning our history. That's one.
Yeah.
Figuring out what kind of resources that we have.
And the ones that we don't have.
Yeah.
And
kind of
pay closer attention to these teachers and make sure they're doing their job.
Then not only that, I think really what is going to promote change is us, because when it boils down to it, when we start having our kids, it's going to take us to the same conversation that we're having right now. It's going to take us to have that same conversation for our kids and to stand up for our kids and their education and stuff like that, because teachers don't care. Like, yeah, they care about getting their curriculum done, but they don't really, it's rare. Some teachers really get into the profession because they really want to be the difference and the change, because without teachers, you wouldn't have the doctors, you wouldn't have the athletes, you wouldn't have the people that are in the STEM program, you wouldn't have nothing. Without teachers, you wouldn't have anything. Everything that's in society, everything that's, this big circle, cause and effect. You do this one thing, then this one thing happen. None of that would happen without teachers. Teachers make up our whole entire society. The part that's messed up is, I feel like when it comes to promoting change, it's going to take the people with the mindset that we have and the people that are willing to question the norms of the world to really get the change to happen. Yeah. Because the issue is with our parents, they didn't question it. The issue with their parents, they didn't question it. The issue with their parents is that they were going through it.
But so they also grew up in a time where, if you said something, then you were shot, you were lynched. So
right,
quiet,
And
they
even with
nothing, they ain't hear nothing. They just keep it moving, And
even nowadays, everybody's getting labeled crazy. I have this theory where it's like, when it comes to people, they're coming even though mental illness is a really big thing, and mental illness is something that should be taken serious, but I feel like a lot of people, like Kanye, for example, they try to say Kanye was crazy, Kanye was bipolar, Kanye was losing his mind, all these things, and that wasn't the case. Kanye is really just questioning and defying all of the norms that the society has placed on the world, and now he's being deemed as crazy. Kanye done lost his mind since his mom died, and I done said it too. I didn't even said it, but now looking at it and me being labeled as the quote unquote crazy person, it's kind of like, oh, okay, Kanye not crazy. Kanye is very insanely smart, and because he's going out,
just needs to work on his. He needs to work on his delivery when he talks.
I think that everything Kanye is doing is very intentional, in my opinion, because when it boiled down to the whole Trump thing, that was intentional. When it boiled down to him running for president, that was intentional. Everything that Kanye does is intentional. It's not like I don't think that Kanye is actually acting on impulse. I really don't believe that. I don't think that he's doing a lot of things on impulse. I think the things that he's doing is causing the attention to the things that he wants the attention to go. Yeah. And now he's the richest black man in the world, in history. The richest black.
Oh, I said Mansa Musa, but
yeah, and no, but he's past Mansa Musa, Shalia. That's what I'm saying. What? I said the same. Yeah, exactly. Yes, no. I said look it up, because I seen that too. I was like, hold up, Mansa Musa was the richest black man in history, but now it's Kanye, Cheryl. Now it's Kanye. Everybody was like, Kanye, why you creating these ugly shoes? Kanye, why you doing this? Why you doing that? And Kanye knew what Kanye was doing the whole time.
But you know what? He definitely proved the point with that clothing line. People will buy anything.
People will buy
anything as long as it's expensive, and they can say, "Oh yeah, I paid for that."
Yeah, literally, because
his clothes had holes in them. They looked like he just picked them off the street and a tractor trailer rolled over them.
I'm sorry, his shoes are ugly. His shoes are ugly. And I don't personally like them, but guess what? He's rich off of it.
Wait, I won't say they're ugly. I'll say that they're basic.
Yes. Okay, there we go.
And
very basic. Yep.
They're not ugly. They look like basic shoes that you can get from Walmart, to be honest.
Literally.
And like when I was still in high school, people were like, "Oh yeah, I got these Yeezys. But I'm just like,
they look like the Walmart shoes. They're like the shoes that you can go down on the aisle of Walmart, pick up them same shoes, but because Kanye has attached his name to it, it's worth so much more.
Can I add something? So back to what Des was saying about like it starts with our history. I agree. I think that our view and understanding of history has been a lie, from our like time perception being off, from us just teachers not being passionate about teaching it. And it's like I don't care if you're not a history teacher, you still have children in your classroom that are from all different backgrounds, all different places, like diversity. Like you have diversity in your classroom, and you cannot say that you're going to be a teacher and not come into contact with others that are different from you. So it's like when I was in class yesterday, and the class was the class is called Managing a Diverse Classroom, and we were talking about the U.S. Confederacy and our history, and how like when we start to talk about the history and the truth, right, it makes people uncomfortable because you're questioning everything that they've been taught and that they know and love. So like when you talk about that kind of stuff, you start to lose people. And I was put in a breakout room. Y'all know how awkward those breakout rooms be.
Yeah.
But I was put in that breakout room, and I was the only one talking, and I just felt like so discouraged, because I know that like, somebody may have been not having a good day or something, but like they just weren't interested. Like they were so nonchalant when it came to the topic, and I was just the only one talking, and I was so passionate about it, and it was just me and my professor going back and forth because nobody else seemed to care. But it's like you have to care, because if you're an educator and you're with children, you have to understand like these gaps and like achievement gaps in the education system. Like you have to understand the numbers and understand where they came from, how they got there, and then you have to understand what you need to do to fix it.
But just to add on, I feel like parent involvement in the schools is extremely important, but it's not encouraged.
That is true.
Yeah, it's definitely not encouraged, but it needs to be. And this would also help the parents understand what their children are learning so they can help them at home.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Okay, just like being potty trained, and back to the whole the vocabulary thing that I brought up earlier, like the article. You cannot, like, if you potty train a kid at school and preschool, you potty train them at school and they're not doing the same thing at home, the child's not gonna get it. And that's the same thing with everything else. Like, you can't do something for half the day and then not do it for the other half. Like, the parents and the teachers have to be on the same schedule. On, like, it has to be some type of communication, because if not, it's gonna leave the child confused.
But then parents feel like, you have those mindsets of some parents where it's like, well, I have to do this, I have to work, I have to do this, I have to feed them, so I'm sending them to you so that, you know what I'm saying? Then you have the parents with that mindset, and it's just like, well, it has to be like an equilibrium somewhere. It has to be a happy medium, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a happy medium with it, but all I'm going to say is the people that have kids and are having kids to invest in their kids and to actually bring something into the world that's going to that they want to be how am I trying to say this? People that have kids with the intention of loving their kids in all aspects, meaning knowing what their kids need academically and so forth and so forth. I feel like that's going to be the change, because when it boils down to it, you can have the teachers up their game, but then you have to have the parents up their game as well. Because if you see that your child is academically excelling, and a teacher come to you and be like, hey, your child is this, I think that your child should be moved up a grade, whatever, woo. It's like you have to stand behind your child 100% and everything that they do, because a lot of the times, just like, and I won't even use that as an example, it's this thing in the South where it's like people, like, they try to say my family tried to tell me that I was passed along in school. They were trying to discredit me for my smartness, but they basically, it's like this thing called pass along, where kids basically get passed along in school, like a grace period, like no child left behind type of thing. So even if they don't have the grades or whatever, they still get passed to the next level. And that's when parents should be stepping up and saying, hey, don't move my kid to this next level if my kid is not ready to be obtaining the information that's being given at that level. Keep my kid where they're at. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like parents, teachers, finances, literally all the stuff that we said, if we can get all of those things to mesh and come together in public schools, because they're happening, but you have to pay an arm and a leg for them. You have to pay an arm and a leg for the education that we should be getting in the first place. If we can get all that stuff into public schools, there will be no worries.
You're definitely right. I agree 100%.
Well, this concludes the 8th episode of the AP Effect. So we're going to conclude this podcast with a quote by Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we are
the AP
Effect.
Y'all have a great weekend.
Flat out.